Welcome to Pigskins and Pageantry, a podcast dedicated to all things SEC football. My name is Wes, and I'd like to invite you to join me, Jesse, and Matt each week as we discuss last week's games, news from around the league, make predictions for the upcoming games, and much, much more. What's up, everybody? It's Wes. It turns out, as you can see behind me, all you have to do to have a good football team is to buy some really good players. Or at least that's what Mark Stoops says. I don't know. Who knows? Most of you know me as a Georgia fan on this podcast today. I'm in my Braves attire after an exciting come-from-behind victory in Game 2 of the NLDS. Jesse, I'm going to need you to continue those good vibes as they head up your way for Game 3. How's it going?
I will be there.
I know. It's going to be awesome.
I hope so. Philly fans are not always the nicest.
I can't imagine
when you're not a Philly fan.
The city that booed Santa Claus. So it's like, so other than that, how's everything? How was your weekend?
It's good. I did not lose to Jimbo Fisher this year. I say I because obviously I was on the field. I was an integral part of that win, but I felt emotionally relieved to not lose to Jimbo Fisher, not Texas A&M, Jimbo Fisher.
Yes, that's always a good thing. And yeah, we're not going to make this into a baseball podcast tonight. We will talk about football, and since Matt is enjoying some well-earned R&R this week, we have a very special guest, and I must enjoy living dangerously because we're doubling up on the Bama fandom with a work colleague of mine, Mitch, who's one of the biggest Bama fans I know. Mitch, what's going on?
Same old there. Like Jesse, I was glad to get the win, and I was glad to see Jalen Milroe. He's progressing.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, before the season, there's probably not a quarterback I wouldn't have traded him for within the SEC, and now about the only one that I would trade him for is Jaden Daniels from LSU, but not anybody else right now.
Yeah, he's definitely coming right along. One question that I like to ask, and sometimes I forget to ask, is how did you become an Alabama fan?
Well, I was born down in Mobile, and both my brothers were born in Tennessee. My middle brother was a strong Tennessee fan, and when they were watching football, and I'd try to watch with them, they say, "You can't pull for Tennessee. You got to pull for Alabama because you're there." And I'm glad he pushed me that way, and I've stuck with that ever since, or whatever. But like I said earlier, I did go to school there, though, so.
Well,
not that really matters as fandom, but
yeah, still cool though. And cool. We're excited to have you on the show, and we'll go ahead and get into some of those games from last week.
Always remember, if you ain't first, you're last.
All right. Well, first up was LSU at Missouri. LSU won this one 49-39, although it was a little bit closer than that. The scoreboard makes it seem a little bit further off. Jesse got the point here. I was almost right, but close doesn't count. I recognize that only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades, right? This one felt like whoever had the ball last would win, and that was almost the case. But LSU did get the pick at the end to put the game away with Mizzou trying to drive down. LSU's defense started out as horribly as they have for many other games this year, and we've talked about that defense. But they seem to get a few things figured out. A sideline reporter was saying there seemed to be more talking amongst the defense this week instead of finger pointing and hanging their heads like they have in weeks prior. So perhaps they're gelling somewhat as a unit on defense, but more to follow. But Jesse, what were your thoughts on LSU at Mizzou?
Stressful because I thought I was going to be wrong. And for those that are not in our group text, Matt and I were fully prepared to let Wes do the show by himself this week. Should Mizzou win? And don't get upset with me, Mizzou Tigers. I don't have a reason to not like you. It's not personal. I don't care that much.
Well, it was unlikely, right?
Yeah. I just have a need to be right in all things. And also, it's just weird for me after 2015 for Mizzou to be a powerhouse. Like, what? But again, I think, it's like Mitch mentioned, Jaden Daniels, my goodness. I mean, this was a hugely offensive game, but he injured his rib on a touchdown run that was called back. He came back into the game after sitting out for a couple series. And then he led not just one, but 2 touchdown drives to give LSU the lead. and he was hobbling, but he was still so damn good. His 35-yard touchdown run was just gritty. It was tough. It's what you want to see from your quarterback, from your team leader. And I am so impressed by him, by his ability to just collect himself. He played through injury last year. He's, being gritty and playing through it this year, but he really epic fashion on his part. He had 393 total yards, 259 passing, 134 rushing, and 4 touchdowns in a day that I'm sure is going to be etched in his memory. But I would also say for LSU, Saturday marks the first time in the last 20 years that LSU allowed 25 points in the first half consecutive weeks in a row. It was still a 39-point showing for Mizzou and at home, so good on the Tigers. And they racked up over 500 yards of offense. Insane. So thank goodness LSU's offense was turning and burning, because the defense, much like Missouri's, need a little help.
Yeah, and they did get a little help from those 2 turnovers, so they did get that figured out at least a little bit. Mitch, what were your thoughts on this game?
Oh, like Jesse said, all Jaden Daniels, good night, and I know a lot of LSU fans over on the rant, they were screaming they wanted Nussmeier after they lost to Florida State early. They were wanting to dump him, but good night. He's the best quarterback in the SEC, and I think he probably won't because they've got 2 losses, but to me, he should be up there in the Heisman talk just because of what he's done on the field. And again, though, LSU's D, I can't ever remember it being this bad. Brady Cook threw for over 400 yards. Only difference was he turned it over twice. Jaden Daniels didn't, and that was a difference.
Yeah, I mean, that's traditionally kind of what LSU's known for, is their defense and their wide receivers. Gosh, the defense is just kind of letting them down here. One question I did have for you, Mitch, before we move on, what are your feelings on Eli Drinkwitz at Mizzou? Now, obviously, Matt's feelings on Eli Drinkwitz, his hatred for Eli Drinkwitz, is well documented on this show. What are your feelings for him as a coach, and does he have the ability to lead Mizzou where they need to go?
When he first got there, I thought he did, just from his previous coaching stint, but last couple of years, I was going, I thought he was going to get run out this year. And so far, I'd have to say he's done pretty well this year. And I mean, this was this was one that they were up by 15. But that's one thing on LSU here, though. I can't really blame him directly because LSU won, because LSU has been down a lot of times this year and multiple scores, and they've always came back to either take the lead or win. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing that scares me about when they come to Bama. If we get a lead, I won't be comfortable with it until the end there. But as far as Drinkwitz goes, so far, I think this year he's earned another year at least.
Right. Well, speaking of Matt, he said he'd put a little comment on here. Mizzou brought back to earth, but still lots to be happy about if you're a Mizzou fan. So some positive things to say for Mizzou. Look at that. Let's move to Western Michigan at Mississippi State. And Mississippi State winning this one 41-28. Matt gets the point here. This one, not a lot going on as far as the actual score goes, and this is what we expected, but some injury stuff going on here. Will Rogers 3 for 3 touchdowns before leaving the fourth quarter with an injury, appeared to be favoring his shoulder after being tackled. They also lost starting running back Jaquavius Marks in the first half. Mike Wright took the remainder of the snaps for Rogers after he went out. I did look today, and Arnett has just said that Rogers and Marks are both fine and were kept out of the remainder of the ball game just because it wasn't really necessary for them to be in. So he says they'll use the bye week to recover and will be evaluated daily. Other than that, I didn't want to spend a ton of time on here. Did either of you have anything to say on this one? Just anything that jumped off the page to you?
Well, I don't know. I'd say Will Rogers, not just from this game. He threw for 3 touchdowns, but he only threw for like 150 yards, and much unlike he has when he was under Mike Leach. But that's one thing. I think he's a fish out of water in the offense they have him in. He's an air raid guy.
Yeah.
And I was kind of surprised they kind of went away from that. I know they don't have Mike Leach, but I thought they had some of the offensive coaches there. So I thought that was kind of strange for his last year. them to go away from the air raid when that's, all he's really known.
Right.
For me, I think it's finding a place for Marks, because right now in Mississippi State's first 2 games of the year, Marks rushed the ball 43 times for 25 yards and 3 touchdowns, or 250 yards, sorry, and 3 touchdowns. But in 4 games since, he's only 39 carries, and he's really, really talented. But I don't necessarily understand, if we're not doing the air raid offense, why isn't he necessarily seeing the ball more? And when they're trying to run the clock out late in the 4th quarter, he's not seeming to see the ball at all, which would make more sense. So
Right.
I also have some strategic questions for the coaching staff at Mississippi State, because yes, I understand that you can't plan to lose a coach like they did. He ran a very specific style of offense that is not widely used. So whoever you bring in is probably not going to do it, but use the recruits and the leaders you have, play to their strengths, call the offense for those leaders. And then when you get your own recruits in, start to make some moves. And it's not that you can't influence the offense for how you coach, your style of coaching, but you also have to call for the talent you have.
Right.
So there's just some confusion on my side for Mississippi State.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
also,
no, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Wes.
No, you're
I'd
good.
also say their defense has regressed, and I wonder it's because, Zach Arnett, really good defensive coordinator, but now that he's the head coach, I'm guessing he's either delegated responsibilities or he's distracted by having to oversee everything. But that's what's kind of surprised me. They've always usually had a pretty good defense. But I mean, Western Michigan, as far as I know, they're no big offensive power, 28 points.
Right.
And then Alabama racked up a pretty good bit on them too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not even just 28 points. It's 413 total yards.
Yeah, that's astounding.
And almost an equal amount of possession time. That's wild. And I think we see it so often for those that are coordinators that then go into head coaching positions for one reason or another. Sometimes you're a really, really great coordinator and it doesn't transfer to head coaching. I mean, we talked about it last week. Will Muschamp, prime example.
Jeremy Pruitt.
Jeremy. The first couple years of Lane Kiffin, to be honest, when he left from being a coordinator into a head coach, not so great. And then, he went through the Nick Saban rehabilitation for wayward coaches and came out on top. But you see,
how's that working out for Butch? I'm sorry.
I don't. Yeah, he's head coach now.
Yeah.
I know. How's it working out for him?
Well,
anyway,
Arkansas State did a little bit better after the first couple of games.
Yeah, that's true. They had a rough start.
Yeah, well, heck, even Kirby Smart, the first year, that wasn't 8-5, and they dang near lost Nicholls State at home.
We lost to Vanderbilt at homecoming. I was at that game.
8.
And there was I think it was Nicholls State. It was a FCS school that they were struggling with in the 4th quarter. I think they won by less than a score. I think it was 1 or 2 points.
That's
I remember that game.
True. Yeah. Well, and I agree with everything that y'all said about this. The weird thing to me is, like you said, you have this specific offense, and I'm not saying that Will Rogers should be put out of the offense, because I mean, obviously he threw for 3 touchdowns, not spectacular in the yardage number, but as far as the touchdowns go. But if we're going to cut out the air raid completely, I would really like to see more of Mike Wright. And I know I've said that before. I don't know. I just really like the guy. I think he's a true dual threat, and I think he's gotten better in his passing as he's gone through his career there. So we'll see. Obviously he got some more snaps here, and we'll see what they do going forward.
Well, I know they used him in the Alabama game on certain situations, but when he was in, you knew they're going to run the ball.
Right. And I would love to see him in a spot where he has the option, right? It's not just, he's in the game, he's going to run.
Well, they ought to use that, because it'd probably catch the defense with their pants down.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, let's talk about Bama at Texas A&M. Bama winning 26-20 here. Matt got the point here. As y'all have mentioned about Milroe, real exciting game here. He and Jermaine Burton both had career high nights. Not a fan of Burton's attitude, and I can say that because he was with Georgia, and I didn't like his attitude when he was with Georgia. It was funny because we were texting in the group. I said, well, I don't like the talking, but I guess they're going to have to stop him in order for him to stop talking. And it was right after that when they strip fumbled the ball from him. But I digress. But I recognize there are all sorts of ways to play football. Just not a fan of the jawing. But hey, whatever gets it done. A&M played well here, not well enough. Bama survives, and at the end of the day, as we've seen with Georgia and with so many other programs over the years, that's all that matters. Do you live to fight another day? And Jesse, what are your thoughts on this one?
I mean, man, Kyle Field is an extraordinarily difficult place to play. I think we often talk about, how difficult it is to play in Death Valley, how difficult it can be to play even in the swamp, but goodness gracious, Kyle Field is a difficult, loud place to play. That 12th man really makes a difference. I mean, when you're getting penalties, and Lord knows Alabama had plenty in this game, but you get penalties, you can't hear, you're off on your count, delay of game, false starts, all of that. It plays into that atmosphere. So for Texas A&M, your fans do an incredible job. I will say, as we kind of mentioned at the top of the show, Bama's offense was encouraging to me this time. I think anytime I see Milroe kind of throw the ball, I have to hold my breath and make sure we're not throwing an interception, look where defenders are, and make sure that we're throwing to the right jersey and we're making reads and making them intelligently, because I think oftentimes he gets it in his head. He's got so much pressure on him. Our offensive line, I'm still not pleased with, but he has so much pressure. He's not given time to make a decision. It's just whatever the play was going to be, it's going to be that. Like, that's it. And I think that contributes to a lot of his interceptions, but he was under duress for most of this game as well. I mean, they got great pressure, but he still completed over 60% of his passes. And we needed all 321 of those yards from him. And so I think, I was really encouraged by the passing game, but what A&M did very well defensively was they really shut down the run game, which is something we have been relying so heavily on in the past 5 games. And they shut that down. They were forcing Milroe to throw and counting on him not being able to do that, which thankfully he seems to have progressed a little bit. But they were outstanding. The Aggies were against the run. They only allowed 29 rushing yards. That's nuts. Their front 7 pressured Milroe constantly. They sacked him 6 times. That's great on them, but also, hello, offensive line. Wake up, lose some weight, get more mobile, get your blocks, because my God, at this point, I might be a better offensive lineman, and I'm very small. I mean, it was insane, but still their secondary allowed 2 big plays from Burton and Bond. Third quarter was critical for their defense, but in the fourth, Alabama made adjustments, and, we were able to give Milroe just a little bit of time, and it resulted in 2 touchdown scores. And ultimately their inability there on defense to kind of adjust to that was why Alabama was able to come out on top. But Max Johnson did not play poorly for the offense at Texas A&M. He did pretty dang well. Great on him to be able to throw a touchdown to his brother. That has to be really, really neat for their family. And there's not many that can say that they've done that. But unfortunately, with, the pressure that we put on him, he wasn't able to throw the ball as much. And, they didn't have as many receptions as they normally have. And then on the Alabama defensive side, our secondary did quite well in this game. I think I was really impressed. They made and took advantage of their matchups. And so it was great. Like I said, Johnson, was pressured all the time. Front 7 got a lot of looks on him, and, was a good showing from the Tide.
Mitch, your thoughts?
I'll second Jesse on the OL. Oh, good night. They're giving me ulcers, but they they don't pass block well, but they make up for it by not run blocking well either. They can't do either one. It's just I've never seen. This is the worst offensive line they've had, I think, since Saban's first year, 2007.
Yep.
It's been bad. But one thing, watching Alabama play this year was how great Bryce Young was, because he hid so many deficiencies in Alabama. He hid a lot of that offensive line stuff. Hell, he hid a lot of the defensive stuff that, we had been going through there. I always appreciated him, but I don't think he gets enough appreciation. They say, oh, well, he didn't win a title. I mean, good night. Without him, we would have been a 4 or 5 loss team the last couple of years.
1000%.
But anyway, to the game though, I was pretty happy with Milroe. He did not have time to throw. He got sacked, I think it was at 4 or 5 times in the first half and 6 overall. But looks like we made some decent adjustments in the second half, especially on defense. But with Milroe, explosive, what really encouraged me there was he's always been able to throw the ball deep with pretty decent touch or whatever. But the first touchdown pass he threw to on 3rd down, he threw to Jermaine Burton, mid-range pass.
Mm-hmm.
Right on the money. I mean, he couldn't have handed it to Burton any better than that. He's getting better with that. And actually, I saw him go through progressions, which I was going, thank God. So I think if he has time, but a lot of our biggest problem and the thing I think that, might keep us from any kind of championship this year is the offensive line. If we don't get better, they're there. A&M, I thought they played well. They actually moved the ball pretty well in the first half, but I thought our defense made really good second half adjustments. We only gave up a field goal. But the secondary, it's weird. Usually I'd say our front seven's our strength. Now I think it's our back seven. The defensive line's not bad. We still got to work on depth, but teams seem to be able to run the ball a little bit on us early. Mm-hmm. And we make adjustments at halftime and we kind of shut that down.
Yeah.
We have got to get a new center. My God, some of those snaps are atrocious.
I cannot believe it. And it's, this guy was like preseason. I think a lot of people are saying preseason all SEC or something like that. And the last couple of years decent, but no way in hell. But good night with Bryce Young. That's what I said. I think he covered up a lot of that the last couple of years.
Spoiled with Landon Dickerson, Barrett Jones, all of those guys that are amazing. And I'm not feeling it. Also, God bless our Lord and Savior, Will Reichard.
Oh, yeah. I was telling people, who's Bama's best player? And I said, Will Reichard. And he goes, well, besides him. And I said, James Burnett.
Right.
The punter. Good night.
Right.
I hope he's not hurt bad.
I know. Will came in to punt and he did a wonderful job.
He had over 40. But, Burnett this year has been like averaging just about 50 yards a punt.
It reminds me when we had J.K. Scott, though.
It does.
J.K. Scott, he was incredible. And it's it's funny. Not often do you hear a school being like, man, we really love our punter. We're all about him.
Well,
but
just ask Vandy. Their punter just passed, 11,000 career punting yards. He's in a league of his own. So
Will Reichard is one of the highest scoring college football players ever.
Yeah, he just tied Daniel Carlson for SEC points leader. He'll pass him this week. And if he gets 51 more, he'll be the NCAA leader.
That's insane.
There you go. And this is what I was
far
talking
we've
about
come with kickers.
This is what I was talking about earlier when I was talking about the double dose of Bama. So we can just reminisce about all these Bama teams.
Sorry, I know.
Well, hey, you got to give us a break. It's not much. It's not many times in past seasons we'll be able to brag about our field goal kicker.
Well, yeah, and I guess that's like the universe's way of balancing things out. Like you can't have a good everything at once, right? It's like I don't know. Matt said, what a game. This was a heavyweight fight. Excellent effort by both teams. Low-key scared for UT to play both of these guys. Mm-hmm. So, and then since we were talking about the Aggies, I had to read this old quote from Mike Leach, which just cracks me up on the Aggie Corps of Cadets. So how come they get to pretend they're soldiers? The thing is, they aren't actually in the military. I ought to have Mike's pirate school. The freshmen, all they get is the bandana. When you're a senior, you get the sword and skull and crossbones. For homework, we'll work pirate maneuvers and stuff like that.
Oh, I miss that, man. Oh, good night, especially like SEC media days.
Oh, those are the best.
Like
Remember,
I
right
always thought
after,
yeah, put him right after Lane Kiffin or them
Yeah.
1-2. Oh, good
Yeah.
night.
Well, speaking of Lane in media days, remember when I think it was COVID, during COVID, they had media days. Remember Mike pulled Lane's COVID mask and like right back on his face? I was like, that is
Mike Leach was not the hero we deserved because we don't deserve him, but he's the hero we needed.
we needed, yes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get to Vanderbilt at Florida. Florida winning this one 38-14. I got the point here. Basically, to sum this one up, I would just say Florida lost to Kentucky last week, and they took it out on poor Vandy in the swamp this week. So not much else to report. This was pretty much a beatdown. Keeping up with Vandy's QB situation, Ken Seals got the start, although AJ Swan was available despite injury. So we'll see how that QB situation evolves this week against Georgia. So Mitch, did you have any thoughts about this game?
Not too many there. Main things, Florida, it's like they're a different team. I mean, I know it's still Vandy, but they're a different team when they play at home. And when they play on the road, you know, they're not a good road team. It's right now anyway, or whatever. But I think, I don't know if Florida, I think Napier will eventually get it. I think it's going to take some time. I just don't know if the Florida fans and the boosters will be patient enough for that.
Exactly. And we've kind of harped on that because we know they are not patient. Jesse, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, Wes. I think they put together arguably their best showing offensively this week. And again, I know it's Vandy, but still, teams have lost to Vandy, and it can often you sleep on those teams, and that's when they catch you. But
Yeah.
they put together a great offensive showing, knowing that they had a lot of starters out, and they were able to hold themselves on the offensive line, even though they had their starting left tackle in Austin Barber and their center Kingsley. Oh, I'm sorry. His last name I can't pronounce, but
good.
they were both out, and they held them, they held up really well. Graham Mertz sacked 3 times, but still able to kind of get it done offensively. So Florida averaged 8.8 yards per rushing attempt, 4.5 of which came, before contact. So good blocking up there, maybe some encouragement. And I think it's like Mitch said, they play really well at home. And again, the swamp's a hard place to play in when you are a visiting team, but they've got to take that mentality and they've got to transfer it to the road, or they're never going to be successful.
Yeah, and the only thing I can think of is maybe that just sort of speaks to the inexperience of this team. They get really energized at home with that home crowd, but then on the road, it's a completely different situation. Matt says, I got nothing. So next one, Kentucky at Georgia. Georgia winning this one 51-13. I got the point here. Finally, Georgia gets out of the gate hot, and they don't look back, right? It's like we've watched this time and time again this year where they get off to a slow start, but not so in this game. Another surprise, Kentucky wasn't able to run the ball with Ray Davis like they had done, and Devin Leary wasn't able to get things going in the passing game. There were definitely mistakes by Kentucky offensively with penalties and putting themselves behind the sticks, and we saw that on several occasions. But I think the Georgia defense also really showed up in this one as well. There have been a lot of questions this year, especially, I mean, we talked about it last week with the statistics, comparing them to teams of the past 2 years. And I think maybe they wanted to answer some of those questions. I don't know. I couldn't really be happier with the offense, except for that one pick, obviously. Otherwise, Beck had nearly 400 yards. Rosemy Jack Saint had a great night. Running backs all seem to be running well, finding those holes created by the line, and the line creating holes, which we have not seen very much of. They've pass blocked pretty well, but the run blocking has been pretty pathetic so far this year. So maybe figuring that out a little bit. And then Brock Bowers passes A.J. Green with his 24th receiving touchdown to be second in program history by himself. Only Terrence Edwards has more with 30. So, Mitch, what were your thoughts on Kentucky rolling into Athens?
I wasn't really high on Kentucky. I saw how much they ran against Florida, but it was a home game. Devin Leary comes over from NC State. He's got the reputation of being a great passer. And I mean, he's been terrible throwing the ball this year. And I was telling some of the Georgia fans where we work there that they were saying, oh, that's going to be a tough game. I said, the least y'all will win by is 14. It'll be 14 plus. I said, y'all will stop the run and Leary can't pass. And I think Bobo's finally figured out that, hey, maybe we can start throwing to Bowers before the fourth quarter. And it's hard for me to get a read on Georgia. They're very good. They may even be great, but I cannot tell because right now their schedule, and it's not all their fault. I mean, that Oklahoma game that the SEC made y'all cancel, holy cow, that would have been a great game. I wish they would
Especially
have.
how they've done this year.
Especially after the past weekend.
Yeah.
And I would have loved to have seen that. And I would have got a read on Georgia. Like I said, they may be great, but I can't really tell because, and I don't know. I don't even, Tennessee I can't tell about. So I was thinking that was going to be y'all's one game of the season. But, Milton's Jekyll and Hyde. So I don't know. It's hard for me to get a read on Georgia. But no, I wasn't real. Kentucky's got the softest out of conference schedule than just about anybody, even Vandy. And that's why I wasn't a big Kentucky fan, especially y'all playing them at home. I did not think that would be a big test for y'all.
Yeah, you talk about Leary not doing well. Do you think that's just discomfort in this new system? Or I know he's also had possible lingering issues from his injury.
I think it could be a bit of both. When you come in there, you get a new offensive coordinator and all like that. But from what I'd heard on the injury, I would kind of suspect that more because he was pretty good at NC State.
Yeah, no, for sure.
He should be pretty good with offensive coordinator at Kentucky. I think a lot of the hype going into the season, knowing that he was coming there, was that Liam Cohen, he was supposed to fit seamlessly into that system. And it's like you said, it hasn't seemed to kind of work out. He was not great. He completed 10 for 26 passes for 128 yards. And that exposed a lot of problems in the offense when your star running back gets shut down. And Georgia, like Wes said, they did pretty well defensively. They were averaging just 1.6 sacks per game with 5.6 tackles for a loss. But against Kentucky, 3 sacks and 4 tackles for losses. And they were able to shut down Ray Davis, just 59 yards rushing. That's insane. Especially after he had like a career high of 280 versus Florida. So I think it's a step in the right direction for Georgia, but I absolutely agree, Mitch. I cannot get a read on this Georgia team. I agree that the schedule is a little soft. Again, that's not their fault. These guys don't schedule themselves. So I get that. But it is really hard to judge. I think we saw a little bit in the Auburn game, maybe, but even Auburn is not good.
Yes.
It's just they play Georgia hard. They play Alabama hard every year. Doesn't matter their talent. I will say, I thought this was Kentucky's best chance to jump on Georgia and to potentially capture some magic and show that they're ready for a national spotlight. They showed they are not. They showed that they are kind of far from it, to be honest. And Devin Leary was supposed to be that guy that was going to take them through to the promised land. And I don't know that he is. It could be injury. It could be a lot of things. But unfortunately, much like Auburn of last week, damn it, you were supposed to do one thing for me and you didn't.
Yeah, a lot of the analysts were saying that Georgia maybe was just waiting for a challenge to actually show up and play right. I don't know if that's true.
That's silly because you can create challenges when you don't play well, and then you can't come back from those challenges.
Right. And part of me wants to believe that this is them actually kind of waking up out of the lull of kind of the beginning of the year. But like you both said, it's really hard to tell because we don't really know how good Kentucky is. Sure, we've seen sparks of greatness from Kentucky throughout the year. But we really don't know how good they are. So Matt says, hope spring eternal, but nope. UK couldn't handle the moment, and UGA showed their dominance. So, all right, next, finally, because it was a short list because we had all SEC play and a few of them had buys as well. So this was the final game from last week. Arkansas at Ole Miss. Ole Miss winning this one 27-20. Matt got the point here. And all I have here is, yeah. I went 0-3 on the upset picks this week. Okay. The worst part is that they were all close. It wasn't like, it was blowouts. I really was kind of hoping Arkansas would figure out some stuff here. KJ Jefferson played tough, but again, we kind of see an inability to take care of the football with the 2 picks, one of them at the end of the game, which sealed it. I'm also shocked at Arkansas's inability to run the ball against what has been a porous, shall we say, Ole Miss defense. Their top rusher, Arkansas's top rusher, was Raheem Sanders with 15 yards on 8 carries. So not great. Ole Miss gets another quality win here. So yeah, a little bit disappointed, but it is what it is. Mitch, what were your thoughts on Arkansas Ole Miss?
It went about like I thought. I thought Ole Miss would win by like 10, but they ran the ball. Ole Miss ran the ball well, and Jackson Dart, he was efficient, but he didn't really throw for many yards or whatever. But they looked like they did more ball control there. But on Ole Miss's defense, I thought they've actually looked better this year, with the exception of the LSU game. LSU, ran through everybody, but there was some metric before the Alabama game that it was a defensive metric. I don't know if it was points per game or what, or if it was defensive efficiency, but they were saying like Ole Miss was in the top 10 in the nation. And I can't remember the defensive metric though, but they've played fairly well they played decently enough on defense to beat us. It's just they couldn't move the ball. That was probably one of our defense's best games, but I thought it was more on that. But it went about like I thought. Arky, they're all KJ Jefferson, and he's one of those quarterbacks, kind of like Milroe in something there. He can be explosive, but he's gonna have a what the hell moment, or two, and you just got to live with that, and then just try to hope he does more explosive plays than those.
Yeah, Jesse, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think, and we've talked several seasons about it, right? KJ Jefferson is an incredible athlete. He's gritty. He'll put his body on the line to move his team forward. And oftentimes it feels like, he's putting a lot of the team and their success on his back. And I don't know the answer to this, but I have to wonder, because we haven't seen a lot of progression with him on his ability to take care of the football. If that comes down to coaching, I don't know, but I think that's something, especially as, someone he's getting older and he's looking to probably go to the draft. What are teams going to look at and think about? Are they going to say, well, yeah, maybe it's coaching that he needs to just develop a little bit more. We'll sit him behind an experienced quarterback. He'll learn, he'll go forward, he'll be our guy. But I'm not sure. That is a big question for me. And I think that's an issue. That's something that, you get those turnovers back. Some games can really change. They can be a big differentiator. But I would say too, on the Ole Miss side, their defense, while very porous and other games, stepped up a lot. They gave a lot of points up to Bama, to LSU, all of that, but they were able to kind of shut it down. Like you mentioned, the Rocket Sanders was contained, which really shut down the Arkansas offense. They only allowed 1 touchdown in the first half. They kept the Razorbacks to under 50 yards rushing. And so I think that's a really positive step for them. And then offensively, despite the fact that it was not some super high scoring game, they were able to operate really efficiently. I felt like on the Ole Miss side, they were, despite the game feeling kind of choppy and disjointed, they seemed to take the plays, old plays, kind of figure them out in a different way, reorganize them. They threw out some new formations and they were effective. So as far as strategy goes, I think offensively they had a good one. And they were able to take some of the criticism that they've gotten over the past couple weeks and work with it. And then their defense started to step up. But if I'm an Arkansas fan, this season is concerning for me. And I know people on the internet, who have no say in what goes on in Fayetteville are saying they want a new coach. I don't know how much that opinion is prevalent in those that actually do make decisions.
Yeah, they also, to those people, I would just say be careful what you wish for, right? Because how many times have we seen not that long ago at Arkansas where they weren't, bad like this. They were bad like and almost. So yeah, I would agree. Matt agrees too. He says closer than I thought it would be. BTW, the fire pitman people need to sit down and shut the hell up. And those are his words, not mine.
Oh,
So,
I agree with that. I mean, how many coaches has Arkansas had since Saban's been there? Is it 5 or 6?
oh gosh, it's been a lot. Yeah.
They don't, and
Who was the guy who only lasted like a season? Didn't he come from
Chad Morris?
Chad Morris, yes, that's right.
Mhm.
He was one and done. Yeah, so yeah, it's been a tough road there for head coaches.
And it's only going to get harder knowing that Texas and Oklahoma are joining the SEC.
Yeah.
Because those are places that they're recruiting from.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's going to get harder.
One thing that I think could help Pittman's case is to excel in the area that he knows, and that's highly recruit offensive linemen. Because I'm wondering if some of these issues that KJ has been having this year have been just because he doesn't really have the time that he has had in the past, which because we've seen him, I mean, do really well, perform at a high level on some of the biggest stages. And then also the run blocking too, like we said, their highest running back here had 8 carries, 15 yards, Raheem Sanders. I mean, that's ridiculous. This team should be dominating the line of scrimmage on the offensive side of the ball against most opponents. Obviously, we don't want to be unrealistic. They're going to struggle against some of the bigger teams, but they should be able to perform at a high level on the offensive side of the ball when it comes to being in the trenches. So I don't know. That would really help his case if he could excel at what people expect him to excel at, and that is the offensive line. Recruit well there and, win the battle up front.
I don't know what's happening with offensive linemen recently, but if you're a good one, you're going to be highly sought after this season. I can promise you that.
Yep. All right, well, that does it for last week's games. The current pick'em standings, I've got 23, Matt has 22, Jesse has 12. Again, long ways to go here. Let's get into some listener feedback real fast.
You want answers! I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
All right, so as we put the question out there every week, just as what are people's takeaways from the previous slate of games. Edward's takeaway this week after the games was Georgia has always had it, and proved it. Texas better get used to games like Saturday because they're about to get hit with them week in and week out. Kentucky should have never been ranked, and Alabama will probably win the West. That is a lot in one statement. So which one would you guys like to tackle first?
Let's tackle Georgia first, since it's the first on the list.
Okay.
I think we kind of covered it. I mean, I feel like Mitch hit the nail on the head. It's just like, I don't know. I can't give you definitive evidence that Georgia has it, defining it as what happened last season and the season before.
Right.
So I don't know. They very possibly could. But I also think we're looking at the rankings and there are any indication, which I know rankings don't matter until we get to, playoffs, but there's a lot of people outside the SEC.
Yeah, I think after Georgia, the next one's Bama at 11, right? This week,
Yeah.
I think.
I think so.
So not anybody else inside the top 10. Yeah. I thought this one was interesting. Texas better get used to games like Saturday because they're about to get hit with them week in and week out. That is very true. However, they did handle an SEC game pretty well earlier this year. So
yeah, they did. At our house.
At Bama, that's true. Very true. So But I get his point. Like, it's not like these are just a couple of blips on the schedule. This is going to be an every week thing for them. So I get what he's saying.
You can tell now, though, with Texas, though, their Sark's trying to build them right. I mean, in our game, Texas dominated both sides of the line of scrimmage in our house in Tuscaloosa, and that doesn't happen. But it happened. It happened this year.
Right.
They should have beat us.
The
game wasn't as close as the score.
As far as Kentucky should have never been ranked.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just so hard, right? Because like we said, with so many teams, all you have to rank them by is what you've seen so far. And there's so many things that you just don't know. And when a team wins the games that they are supposed to win, it's hard to take them out, right?
Yeah, but I mean, like I said, Leary wasn't the stud that he was, they were thinking he was going to be. And their non-conference schedule was so bad. I mean, they beat 2 or 3 Potawatomi states, and I'm going in some directional schools, and they were even asking Stoops about that. And I don't know if it was one of the questions he was asked, I think, before the season started or whatever. It may have been an SEC media days, and he was saying, "Hey, we play in the SEC. That's tough enough. We need to win 6 games and get to a bowl game or whatever." And I'm going, yeah, you're never going to win a championship that way if you don't play. You got to schedule. Not saying every non-conference team has to be great, but you need to schedule a good non-conference game every year.
Yeah.
But I think too, at Kentucky, at least as far as Stoops is concerned currently, I don't think there's pressure to necessarily win a national title.
Oh, I agree. I agree with you.
Yeah.
That's why I think he's
chilling. He's chilling.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just chilling. As long as he has a winning record and they make a bowl game, straight chilling.
Yeah.
Doesn't need to do anything.
Yeah, I hear that. I don't know, especially being in a member of the Stoops family and being a competitor. I do have a hard time believing that he's sitting back going, meh, good enough.
And I don't know that he necessarily is, but I think those that control that program and control his employment are fine.
Yeah, I think that may be it. The answer he gave when he was talking about his non-conference schedule, though, just rubbed me wrong. It didn't seem like a guy that was wanting to play the better teams.
Right.
It seemed like he was worried more about wins and losses.
By the way, and I put this out there, and some people responded, but do you think his comment about the Georgia bought a lot of players, which is okay, you can do that now. I need more people to donate at Kentucky so we can do that too. I'm paraphrasing, but you get the point. Do you think that was like a dig at Georgia, or is that just like just a statement of fact? You guys got to contribute.
I think it was more at that. And I know when Saban said the thing, he said basically the same thing, about Jimbo Fisher a couple of years ago, and he got blown up, but he didn't mean that to go public. He was talking to boosters, and he was trying to get in. I think what he was trying to do was get the NIL belt. At least that's stuff I heard, but it was second and third hand.
Yeah.
But and I'm imagine in the long run, Stoops is doing the same thing. Hey, y'all donate here, we can get some NIL there. Maybe we can get some of the players.
Right.
Because
I struggle with. I think it's both. I think it's, yes, I can use this as an opportunity to get, people more interested in the program, but I think it also is a slight dig, because if you remember when Coach Beamer played Georgia last season or season before, whatever it was, and he was like, yeah, they have 5 stars.
Right. Yeah, I think that was 2 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. He was just like, we don't have 5 stars. So I think that's like the nicer way of saying it, right? Where it's like, yeah, but to say like, yeah, you can buy players, which you want to get really technical about it, the school cannot. It
True.
has to be outside sources. Now, we all know that they help organize that and they help them make that content. We all have NIL studios now within our institution, but
the rotating camera.
Yeah, that is, boosters can't just donate to the athletic program and it go to students. Like, that's not how NIL works.
Right.
It's not how it's supposed to work. And if that's the way you're doing it, please make sure that that is covered behind layers and
It is organized, just not quite like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it was both. I think it's like, hey, we can do this too. And we're probably going to have to, because again, Oklahoma and Texas are joining, and those are deep, deep pockets.
Oil money.
Step up.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit of like a meh.
Right. And I get it. There's, at the end of the day, there's going to be some schools that just flat out have more money than others because, you know, there's more money in it. They have more boosters that have deeper pockets, etc. But for the most part, you're going to be able to match. Each school is going to have that one or that handful of people who have super deep pockets, and they can get pretty much whoever they want.
Yeah.
So from that standpoint, I think that the NIL hasn't been terrible for parity. What are you going to say, Mitch?
Kentucky is horse breeder country. There's
Yeah,
that's true.
Did y'all hear Gene Smith when he was testifying? You know, he was used to be the AD at Ohio State, but he's the head of an NIL somewhere, and I wanted to say it was Carolina. But anyway, he was testifying in Congress, and he was the congressman. They were asking him questions and all like that, and he says, well, heck, he said, we've got recruits that are demanding or asking for $5,000 just to visit the school.
Yeah.
And I'm going, I don't doubt that, but that's the first time I had heard anything like that. And some of the other people were going, wow, I'd not heard this. And I was going, that was an eye opener there just to get them to visit, ain't none of this, well, I grew up this fan, it's like,
Right.
I think that's long gone now.
It is a weird concept. I can't, and granted, I'm not an elite athlete, but it's just a weird concept to me to just sit there and be like, sure, I'll visit. Give me $5,000. I can't quite grasp that, but just the opportunity is amazing.
Schools use, they take pictures of them on the sidelines. They, do all of this stuff with them. And if they're a highly touted recruit, they post that all over. They're like, oh, so-and-so is visiting. So excited to have so-and-so. I mean, look at if NIL had fully passed when Arch Manning was coming through, he could have charged so much money.
Oh yeah.
It's absolutely insane. And it's not just football players, it's other athletes. In fact, some of the biggest NIL deals are women athletes right now. And NIL is fascinating because now it's exactly like you said. It's not necessarily where I have these ties or what I grew up with. It's who can secure me this amount of publicity, this amount of income while I dedicate my time to the university. And it's only going to get worse because there are, high schoolers can profit off of it now too.
Yeah.
Georgia's one of the states that has announced that their high school athletes can absolutely receive compensation. So it's only going to grow. The NCAA's lawsuits are not being successful as of late. So you're going to see a lot of this that's going to impact even more than conferences shifting.
Yeah. And I don't want to get out of here without, since I have two Bama fans here, Alabama will probably win the West. How are you feeling? I mean, because that out of conference loss at the beginning of the season means nothing.
Well,
yeah.
I'll let Jessie go first.
I'm just like running through the schedule in my head over and over again. And I'm just like, where is it's a possibility. The statistics feel okay. But my confidence is not there in this team. And so it's really hard for me to say definitively. Now that LSU has 2 losses, it makes me feel a little bit better because I'm telling you, I'm not looking forward to playing LSU. I don't care that it's in Bryant-Denny. We saw what happened with Texas. We can lose at home. I'm also not confident playing Auburn because it's Auburn and it doesn't matter how bad they are. Tennessee also, Jekyll and Hyde, like you mentioned, I don't know which one we'll get. So I'm nervous. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah. Our offensive line, I don't know. That's the thing with me. Confident in our defense. I'm getting more confident in Milrow, but I'm really confident in our defense. our receivers are coming around. Heck, I think we dropped more passes in spring ball than we did in fall practice than we have in games or whatever. They've actually been more of a strength, but our offensive line, that could be a game breaker because like LSU is going to score points on us. We
Oh,
should be able to score points on their defense. But if the offensive line doesn't show up, then yeah, I don't know. That I'm not like Jesse. That game scares me.
I don't
Jaden
want this
Daniel.
offensive line to show up. I want a different one to show up.
Well, especially since LSU's first loss is out of conference as well. So
Yeah.
only one
I would
conference loss
say
for them.
right now, I'd say I think we got a chance. Right now, I think it's like a coin flip.
Mhm.
All right, fair enough. All right, well, let's go ahead and make some predictions for the upcoming games.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble!
All right, well, first up on the games for this upcoming weekend, we have Georgia 6-0, 3-0 in the SEC at Vanderbilt, 2-5, 0-3 in the SEC. That is noon. I didn't write out what the channel is. Anyway, it's at noon. I think it's probably ESPN or something like that.
Not that many.
Yeah, I'm sure you can find it.
Probably SEC Network.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
They do a lot. They do a lot of the noon games.
Yeah. Matt has Georgia winning 52-10 here. I'm saying hopefully last week was a jolt to wake up in earlier games. Plus, it's a road game, so they should be a little less likely to get too comfortable, I'm hoping. I'm going with the Dogs 41-10. Jesse, what's your prediction?
Yeah, I won't pick against them this week. Fine. Pick the Dogs 42-6.
Is that 2 field goals or a touchdown and a missed extra point?
That's 2 field goals.
All right. Mitch, what's your prediction? Georgia at Vanderbilt.
I got 47-13. I think Georgia, since it's not a big game that I think they're really going to get up for, and it's away. I think they start off sluggish, but never in danger of losing, and they roll.
Okay. All right. Next, Arkansas at 2-3, 0-2 in the SEC. At number 11, Alabama 5-1, 3-0 in the SEC. Noon on SEC Network. That one is. I did write that one down. Matt says Bama is going to win this one 38-14. Oh, wait, hold on real quick. I have to say this before we move on. By the way, since we were talking about Georgia a second ago, do y'all believe that Kirby Smart doesn't know who Miley Cyrus is? The reason I asked this is because this week a reporter said something in the press conference about a wrecking ball, and then the reporter joked, "Oh, that reminds me of Miley Cyrus and Wrecking Ball." And Kirby responded that he didn't know who Miley Cyrus was, but he knew Eric Church's Wrecking Ball. Y'all think he's being for real, or is he just messing with people?
I don't. I believe him.
But he's got kids. Like surely the man has heard the name and knows who it is.
Well, if he's got kids and saw Miley Cyrus, twerking or anything like that, or heard anything about it there, or his wife did, then they wouldn't be watching.
He probably, I feel like he would know Hannah Montana. Like if someone's Hannah Montana, I think he would know that. I don't
like if somebody brought that up, he'd be like, "Oh, that's who that is."
Right. But I don't know that he knows Miley Cyrus. Like I could imagine that. I mean, up until honestly, like 2 years ago, I didn't know who Ariana Grande was, and I'm only 30.
Oh my. Okay. All right. Well, I mean, and I guess it's just all in what you've heard and what you've been around and whatever. So yeah,
she's probably not like the most popular locker room music.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. When I heard that, for him to just say, not that he doesn't, I don't listen to Miley Cyrus or she's not my fave or something like that. For him to say, I don't know who that is, that was like, are you messing with them? I don't know.
I would imagine Miley Cyrus doesn't know who Kirby Smart is either.
Well, that's fair. That is fair. All right, back to Arkansas, Alabama. Like I said, Matt said Bama's going to win 38-14. I think Arkansas has a chance here, as stupid as that sounds, but the past few games have been rough, and KJ Jefferson has struggled to protect the ball. I'm going, since Bama is at home and gets back to doing more Bama things, I'm going Bama 31-14. Jesse?
I remember when this game, Arkansas, Alabama, used to be a very tough, contentious game. They used to play us hard. I mean, back when like Ryan Mallett was there and even a little bit before, we don't play them every single season, but it used to be one that you would really, really want to watch. And I don't know that it's necessarily going to be that nerve-wracking as it used to be, but I think, Lord knows with us offensive line, who knows? But I am encouraged by last week. So I think Bama takes this one. They got to wake up because it is an early kickoff there, but I'm going to pick the Tide 34-14.
All right. Mitch, what's your call?
I got it much closer. That shows you how much faith I have in their offensive line. I think it's going to be close to even at halftime. We have started slow, the last few games or whatever like that. So I think it'll be maybe 10-10 at halftime. And then I got Bama 27, Arkansas 17.
Okay. All righty. A little sleepy noon kickoff there. Maybe take them a while to warm up, huh? All right. Texas A&M at 4-2, 2-1 in the SEC. At number 19, Tennessee 4-1, 1-1 in the SEC. That is 3:30 on CBS. That is the CBS game of the week. Matt says, "Oof! Why isn't this a night game?" He really wants a night game in Neyland. He's going with A&M 35-28. So he does not say that Tennessee gets it done at home. Tennessee's only favored by 3 here. At least they were last I looked. This is a tough one. Like, I feel like it's almost like a coin flip. And the difference here is razor thin. I can't really afford to pick too many more upsets though for right now. So I'm going to go with Tennessee here, 30-27. Jesse.
I literally just changed it.
Uh-oh.
It's so tough. It's so tough because I think they're very close. Oh my goodness. I don't know. And with Max Johnson, I feel like, okay. I could change out the team and just keep the score. I really could, but I think it's gonna be a close one. If it were night game in Neyland, I might change it back. But seeing how A&M played us last week, I'm going to pick the Aggies 28-27.
Okay. All right. Picking the slight upset there. Mitch, what you got?
I got a 24-21 Aggies. They went on a late kick. Their defense plays well. I'm not sold on Milton. Milton's even more erratic than Milroe. So I'm thinking Milton, they get their defense gets in Milton's head and he turns the ball over a couple times and A&M wins by a field goal.
So I unintentionally went against everyone else in this one. I thought that was going to be like the expected pick. All right.
So.
All right. Next is Florida 4-2, 2-1 in the SEC at South Carolina, 2-3, 1-2 in the SEC, 3:30 on SEC Network. Matt says Florida's going to win this one 28-24. I think being at home really helps South Carolina here. Do not underestimate the importance of Sandstorm. Spencer Rattler has a good day, and I'm going South Carolina 27-24. Jesse.
This was another one. I could change it back and forth because I really feel like it could go either way. And the only reason I'm going this way is because it is in Columbia and Florida just hasn't traveled very well. But I think Spencer Rattler has him a day. He's gritty. It's going to be a close one. And I think this is going to be a fun game to watch. So I'm going to pick the Gamecocks 28-27 because when I can't pick, that's what I do.
Okay. Mitch, your call for Florida at South Carolina.
Florida's not a good road team. South Carolina, I think Spencer Rattler will have a good day, and I think South Carolina's defense will slow down them. Got a little bit lower scoring. Got them 24-17.
Okay. All right. Next, Missouri 5-1, 1-1 in the SEC at number 24 Kentucky 5-1, 2-1 in the SEC. It's 7:30 on SEC Network. Matt's going Kentucky here 30-24. Yeah, I think that's weird because I feel like Mizzou might actually be the better team here. But again, I don't think you can kind of underestimate the power of Kroger Field. I'm going to go with Kentucky here, 28-24. Jesse?
No, I'm sticking with it. After watching how they played LSU, I'm picking Mizzou. I'm going Tigers on this one. I'm picking Tigers 24-21. I know it's at Kroger, but
yeah,
can't help it.
That's probably a good pick, Mitch.
Yeah, I got Missouri 27-20. I think Cook will be able to throw. He'll probably turn the ball over a time or two, but I think Missouri will stack the box and make them throw.
Okay. All right. And then finally, Auburn 3-2, 0-2 in the SEC at number 22. LSU 4-2, 3-1 in the SEC. That is 7:00 on ESPN. Matt is going LSU 28-24 here. Yeah, this is a night game in Death Valley. LSU maybe starting to get some things figured out on defense. I'm going LSU also 35-24. Jesse?
Keeping it rolling with LSU. I'm not picking against Jaden Daniels at night in Death Valley, and I'm certainly not going to pick against him when it's Auburn. I think it's going to be a close first half, and then I think LSU makes adjustments. I think Jaden Daniels settles in, and I'm picking the Tigers. Well, I guess. Back on Tigers. I'm going to pick LSU 35-21.
Mitch?
Yeah, I got Jaden Daniels rolling. Auburn's got a decent defense, so they're not going to break 50, I don't think, but I got LSU 41-20.
Okay. All right. Well, that does it for the upcoming list of games. Mississippi State and Ole Miss enjoy a bye week this week, so rest up, get healthy. And yeah, we appreciate everyone listening to us. Mitch, thanks for being our guest today. It was great to have you on.
Oh, thanks for having me. I enjoyed it.
More Bama people.
That's right. I know we've done a few where there's been 2 Georgia people, so we got to be fair, you know. So if you'd like to contact us, please email us at pigskinsandpageantry@gmail.com. We are on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook at Pigskins and Pageantry. We are on X, or Twitter, as Matt says still, at PPSEC Podcast. We're available for download on iTunes, Spotify, Amazon Music, TuneIn Radio, most podcasting apps for iPhone, Android, and other operating systems. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe and review. We would greatly appreciate 5 stars there. That would greatly help our visibility. Yeah, we're getting into more of the SEC heavy schedule here, so exciting games coming up. Until next time, this is Wes. Go Dogs.
Roll Tide, go Braves.
That's right. That too. Mitch, you want to give a sign off? Go for it if you want to.
Just like Jesse. Roll Tide, go Braves.
Cosign the Braves part.